Have you ever noticed how exhausting it is to hold on to something that wants to slip away? We spend so much energy trying to keep things in place, whether it's a connection that has grown quiet, a plan that stopped making sense months ago, or an old vision of who we thought we were supposed to be. We grip so tightly because we worry that if we let go, we will be left empty-handed. But holding on with closed fists doesn't protect what we love. It only tires out our arms, leaving us sore, weary, and unable to receive anything new. Think about what happens inside you when you refuse to let something go. You carry it into every room you enter. You bring it to the dinner table. You take it to bed with you. And it is the very first thing waiting for you when you open your eyes in the morning. It becomes a constant, quiet tension in your shoulders, a heavy tightness in your chest that you've gotten so used to. You almost forget what it feels like to breathe freely. We tell ourselves that this weight is the price we have to pay to keep our lives from falling apart. We convince ourselves that if we just hold on a little longer, bear a little more pain, or sacrifice just a bit more of our own peace, we can force the peace to fit back where it used to be. But deep down, in the quietest moments of the night, when the world shuts off, you know the truth. You feel the sheer effort it takes to sustain something that is no longer sustained by life itself. You realize how much of your daily energy is consumed simply by keeping up appearances, by trying to fix what keeps breaking, or by hoping tomorrow will somehow be different without anything actually changing. It is a lonely kind of labor, working so hard to protect something that is continuously draining you. We hold on because the alternative feels terrifying. The space between letting go and finding something new feels like a vast, empty drop into the unknown. We ask ourselves, if I stop trying, what was all this for? If I drop this weight, who am I without it? We mistake the familiar pain of holding on for safety, simply because it is a pain we already know. But there is a profound difference between a life that is truly secure and a life that is merely anchored to heavy things out of fear. Realizing that you are tired isn't a failure. Wanting to put down a heavy load isn't quitting. It is the gentle, honest acknowledgement that your hands were made to build a life, to create, to reach out, and to rest, not to spend forever clinging to things that are straining to leave. You deserve to experience what it feels like when life flows naturally, without you having to constantly pull on the ropes just to keep yourself anchored. If you are standing at a crossroads today, feeling the quiet friction between wanting to control the future and needing to rest, I want you to know you are not alone in this space. You don't have to figure out the whole rest of your path right now. You just have to acknowledge the weight you are currently carrying and ask yourself if it is truly serving your heart. Before we take another step together, pause for a moment, take a slow breath, and leave an affirmation in the comments below. What is meant for me will never pass me by. Writing those words down is a small, conscious act of setting down the weight you were never meant to carry alone. There is a very specific kind of quiet anxiety that settles in when we realize something isn't working. Yet we keep going through the motions anyway. It isn't a loud, dramatic panic that everyone else can see. It is much quieter than that. It is the subtle, persistent feeling that life is somehow happening somewhere else, or that time is moving forward while you remain quietly stuck in place. You look around at your daily routine, at the path you worked so hard to build, and instead of feeling settled, you feel a hollow sense of distance from your own experience. You might find yourself sitting in your car late at night, staring at the dashboard long after you've turned off the engine, unable to go inside just yet. In those quiet moments, the silence feels heavy. You sit there, wondering why you feel so thoroughly drained by things that used to bring you comfort, or why the goals you once cared about so deeply now feel like obligations you are dragging uphill. You trace every past decision in your head, playing back old conversations, asking yourself where the turn was, what you missed, or what you could have done differently to keep everything intact and meaningful. We often confuse staying in a difficult situation with being resilient. We tell ourselves that endurance is always a virtue, that pushing through the numbness is just what adults are supposed to do. We say, if I just try a little harder, explain myself a little clearer, or wait just a bit longer, everything will fix itself. We convince ourselves that if we suffer quietly through the current season, we will eventually earn the right to feel peaceful again. But there is a profound difference between working through a temporary rough patch in a healthy situation and forcing yourself to stay in a space that has long since outgrown you. This silent fear stems from the painful realization that you might be living a life designed by your old fears rather than your present truth. You begin to worry that by holding on to what is safe and familiar, you are actively missing out on the person you are actually meant to become. You watch days, months, and seasons slip by, and a quiet panic whispers that you are wasting precious time. You look at your own hands and realize you've been using all your strength just to maintain a past version of yourself, leaving no energy left to welcome the present. The hardest part about this fear is that it often isolates you. From the outside, everything might look completely fine. You smile, you show up, you fulfill your responsibilities, and you answer when people ask how you are doing. But underneath the calm surface, you feel like a spectator in your own story. You are watching yourself live, going through all the right steps, but feeling almost entirely disconnected from the joy of it. You feel guilty for even feeling this way, telling yourself you should be grateful for what you have, which only adds a layer of shame to your quiet exhaustion. It takes immense courage to admit to yourself that you are missing your own life. It requires a gentle, unvarnished honesty to look at where you are and say, this is not enough for my spirit anymore. Acknowledging this fear isn't ungrateful, and it isn't a failure. It is actually your inner self sending you a vital message. That ache, that quiet restlessness you feel while sitting in the silence of your car or lying awake in the dark, is not proof that you are broken. It is proof that a part of you is still fighting for your life. It is the soft, persistent reminder that you were meant to participate in your journey, not just endure it. Our minds are built to seek safety above almost everything else, and to human psychology, the known, even when it causes us deep discomfort, feels far safer than the unknown. When we hold on to old outcomes, outdated roles, or fading connections, we aren't necessarily holding on to what is good for us. We are holding on to predictability. We would often rather deal with a familiar struggle that we know how to navigate than step into the vast, quiet space of what comes next. The unknown feels like an open sea with no landmarks, while our current situation, as painful or limiting as it might be, offers us a map we have already memorized. Think about how much energy goes into keeping our lives predictable. We build routines around avoiding discomfort. We cling to old hopes because letting them go feels like admitting that a part of our story didn't have the ending we wanted. We stay in spaces where we feel small because the effort required to step into something new feels overwhelming. We hold on because we tell ourselves that as long as we are holding on, we still have a say in how things turn out. We mistake our gripping for control, and we mistake control for safety. But control is often just fear wearing a mask of preparation. Psychologist Carl Jung once reflected on the profound nature of personal transformation. When he noted, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." It is easy to read those words and feel a spark of hope, but moving into that reality takes gentle self-compassion. When we look deeply at this insight, we begin to see that our past events, our old disappointments, and our current attachments do not have to dictate our future. Yet, making that shift is terrifying. When you have spent years defining yourself by what you carry, by the things that happened to you, the expectations placed upon you, or the battles you fought, it is disorienting to realize you have a choice. Releasing our grip requires us to unbind ourselves from the comfort of our past identity. It asks us to transition from reacting out of old, deep-seated fears to choosing out of present self-trust. We grip so tightly because we treat our past decisions as permanent sentences instead of temporary steps. We tell ourselves that if we let go of what we fought so hard for, we are dishonoring the time, effort, and tears we invested in it. But honoring your past does not mean you have to stay trapped in it forever. You can appreciate what a chapter taught you while still having the courage to turn the page. You can acknowledge that something was important to you without allowing it to occupy the space where your future needs to grow. Understanding why we hold on so fiercely is the first step toward releasing the tension in our hands. It isn't because you are weak, naive, or foolish. You hold on because you are human. And human beings naturally crave stability. But true stability doesn't come from forcing things to stay the same. It comes from knowing that you will be okay even when things change. When you begin to understand that your urge to control comes from a desire to keep yourself safe, you can start to offer yourself real safety, the kind that comes from trusting your ability to handle whatever comes next, rather than trying to prevent the world from moving. It is so easy to fall into the belief that there is only one specific path to happiness, one precise outcome that will make all our effort worthwhile. When we live out of fear, we start building intricate mental blueprints of how our lives are supposed to look. We tell ourselves that if we just secure that one specific result, hit that exact milestone, or keep a particular circumstance from changing, we will finally earn the right to feel safe, valued, and at peace. We mistake these rigid expectations for hope, but more often than not, they are illusions we construct to protect ourselves from the vulnerability of not knowing what comes next. You might find yourself looking back at an old notebook where you wrote down your goals 3 years ago, or scrolling through memory prompts on your phone, only to feel a sudden, sharp pang of quiet regret. You look at where you are right now and notice the massive gap between what you envisioned and what actually happened. Life looks entirely different than you planned. And in the quiet of your thoughts, a small voice starts to whisper, "I was supposed to be further along by now. This wasn't how the story was written. I must have made a wrong turn somewhere." When we fixate on a single, inflexible blueprint, every unexpected detour feels like a devastating failure. We start viewing life not as a journey to be experienced, but as a strict exam we are constantly running out of time to pass. We begin to evaluate our worth based on how closely our reality matches the imaginary timeline we created years ago. A timeline made by a version of ourselves who knew far less about life than we do today. We become so attached to the mental picture of how things should be that we completely overlook the quiet beauty, quiet strength, and genuine possibilities of what currently is. Fear convinces us that if life strays from our plan, it means everything is falling apart. But the truth is much softer than that. When an outcome fades out of reach, or when a plan you poured your heart into crumbles, despite your best efforts, it isn't life taking something away out of cruelty or punishment. It is often life making room for something that actually fits who you are today, rather than who you were when you made that original plan. You are not the same person you were years ago. Your capacity, your understanding, and your true needs have shifted. It makes complete sense that the life required to honor you now might look different than what you once imagined. These illusions of control feel comforting because they promise us predictability in an unpredictable world. We convince ourselves that as long as we stay focused on our rigid goals, we can keep disappointment at bay. But clinging to an outdated vision of your life is like trying to wear clothes you outgrew years ago just because you liked how they looked back then. It causes unnecessary friction, restricts your movement, and keeps you from breathing comfortably in the present. Releasing these illusions requires us to stop treating our lives like a project that needs to be constantly fixed or perfected. Life is not a rigid checklist to be completed. It is a living, evolving process that asks for our presence, not our perfection. When you stop demanding that your story follow a specific script, you free yourself to actually live it. You allow yourself to see that a change of direction isn't the end of your progress. It is simply the moment your real life begins to unfold beyond the narrow walls of what you used to fear. Letting go is one of the most deeply misunderstood concepts in our lives. We tend to think of it as giving up, losing a long battle, or quietly resigning ourselves to disappointment. We worry that if we stop trying to manage everything, we are admitting defeat, walking away empty-handed, or accepting that our efforts meant nothing. But real releasing is not passive, and it is certainly not a sign of weakness. It is an active, grounded choice to stop fighting against reality. It is looking at a situation as it actually is, not as you wish it were, not as you hoped it would be, and not as you bargained for. And softly saying, I accept this present moment. Think about how much quiet energy it takes to constantly push against what is already happening. When we refuse to accept a situation, we spend our days in a state of subtle, continuous battle. We try to re-explain ourselves to people who do not want to understand. We try to fix problems that are not ours to solve. We try to hold together structures that are naturally coming apart. Releasing control simply means stepping out of that exhausting fight. It means recognizing that you cannot pour water into a vessel that insists on turning upside down, and that continuing to do so will only leave you completely drained. Releasing control does not mean you stop caring, nor does it mean you become indifferent to your own life. It means you stop trying to manage every variable that lies outside your hands. You stop trying to control how other people feel about you, how fast a healing process should take, or how a specific situation must resolve itself. Instead, you redirect all that wasted, anxious energy back to where it can actually make a difference, into your own daily actions, your own self-respect, and your own internal peace. You learn to put your effort into doing your best while allowing the external pieces to land where they naturally belong. When you practice releasing, you are not throwing your hands up in despair. You are putting your hands down in peace. You are choosing to stop holding your breath until life gives you a guarantee. You begin to see that true power does not come from micromanaging the future or obsessing over every detail. True power comes from knowing that no matter what outcome arrives, you have the internal strength, grace, and adaptability to meet it. It takes profound emotional maturity to look at something you cared about deeply, acknowledge that it has run its course, or that it cannot be saved by your effort alone, and step back. It is an act of deep self-compassion to say, I have done everything I can do here, and now I must let life respond in its own time. Releasing control allows you to trade constant anxiety for a quiet, grounded confidence. It gives you permission to stop acting as the sole engine trying to move an entire world. and lets you return to simply living your own life with an open heart. Think about how nature moves without panic, hurry, or regret. A tree does not hold on to its leaves in autumn out of fear that spring won't arrive, nor does it rush its branches to bloom in the dead of winter. It simply abides by the natural rhythm of things. It allows the dry leaves to drop because holding on to them would steal the strength it needs to endure the cold. And it knows that letting go is the only way to make room for new growth when the season turns. Human lives move in very similar cycles, even when we fight against them with everything we have. We live in a world that constantly tells us to hurry, to catch up, and to force things into existence before their time. We set arbitrary deadlines for our healing, our happiness, and our success. And when life doesn't align with our exact calendar, we accuse ourselves of falling behind. We look at where others are standing and feel an aching sense of urgency, as if peace were a limited resource running out right before our eyes. But forcing something to happen before it is ready is like pulling open the petals of a flower before it has fully formed. It doesn't make it bloom. It only breaks it. Reflecting on how unique each individual's journey truly is, Carl Jung remarked, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases." This truth offers a soft, grounding comfort when we feel tempted to measure our pace against the rest of the world. Trying to force your life to match someone else's timeline, or even a former timeline you created for yourself, only creates internal friction and self-doubt. What brings fulfillment to someone else might crush your spirit, and what works for another person's journey may not fit the quiet, intricate shape of yours. Your path requires its own conditions, its own seasons of waiting, and its own unique rhythm. The quiet wisdom of natural timing asks us to trust the invisible work happening beneath the surface. Just like a seed buried deep in the dark earth is not idle simply because you cannot see it growing, your life is not standing still during periods of quiet transition. The seasons where nothing seems to be moving outward are often the very times when your roots are growing deepest. They are the quiet months where your character is being strengthened, your priorities are being clarified, and your heart is being prepared to carry what comes next. When you begin to align with natural timing, you stop viewing delay as a denial. You realize that just because an answer hasn't arrived today does not mean it will never come. It simply means the conditions are not yet complete, either within you or in the world around you. Learning to trust this timing is an act of profound self-respect. It allows you to put down the anxious weight of rushing, to stop measuring your progress by external noise, and to allow your life to unfold at the exact pace that honors your true growth. When you finally set down a heavy obligation, step away from an outdated goal, or release a dynamic that no longer holds mutual effort, there is usually a quiet pause afterwards. It is the moment the dust settles and the noise stops. You might sit at your desk in the late evening, look at the empty space on your calendar, or check your phone only to find a stillness you aren't used to. In those moments, the temptation to fill that empty space immediately, with constant busyness, with old distraction habits, or with artificial noise, can feel completely overwhelming. We are so conditioned to be constantly moving, striving, and managing that quiet, open space often feels terrifying. Our minds mistake stillness for emptiness, and emptiness for abandonment. We start to wonder if the quiet means we have failed, if we have been left behind, or if we are wasting precious time. So we rush to fill the void with anything that will keep us from having to feel the weight of our own presence. We reach out to old dynamics that we know aren't good for us. We take on commitments we don't have the capacity for, or we submerge ourselves in continuous noise just to avoid the quiet. But learning to sit with that open space without running away is where real healing actually begins. That space isn't a desert or an empty void. It is room to breathe. It is the necessary buffer zone where your nervous system finally recovers from the exhaustion of constant striving. Think of it as a quiet, resting field that has been cleared after a long season of farming. The soil isn't barren just because nothing is growing on the surface right now. It is simply resting, gathering the nutrients it needs so it can nourish whatever is planted next. When you allow yourself to stay in the open space without trying to force something into it, you give yourself the rare gift of emotional honesty. In the quiet, you finally get to hear your own voice above the surrounding expectations. You start to discover what actually brings you comfort versus what merely distracted you. You begin to notice what you genuinely care about, free from the pressure of who you felt you had to be to keep everyone else satisfied. Making peace with open space means trusting that emptiness is not a permanent state. It is a transitional threshold. It is the clean slate that life provides right before a new chapter takes shape. You do not have to rush to paint over every blank page in your life out of fear of the white space. You can allow yourself to sit quietly in the room you have just cleared, letting your hands rest and your heart settle, knowing that whatever is meant to enter that space next will arrive when you are ready to receive it with a calm and steady spirit. Trusting what is coming doesn't mean blindly believing that everything in life will be perfect, painless, or easy. It isn't about pretending that difficult days won't happen, or convincing yourself that you will never face disappointment again. True trust is far more grounded than that. It is the steady, quiet confidence in your own ability to handle whatever arrives, no matter how unexpected or challenging it might be. When you know deep within your core that you can survive a setback, adapt to a sudden shift, and rebuild your life piece by piece. If necessary, you stop living in constant fear of the future. We spend so much time worrying about worst-case scenarios, playing out imagined storms in our minds, and wondering how we would ever manage if things went wrong. But when you look back at your actual life, you will notice something incredible. You have already survived every single difficult day you once thought you couldn't get through. You have navigated moments where your heart felt entirely broken. Seasons where the path ahead was completely dark. And unexpected plot twists that knocked you off your feet. Yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, and still seeking to grow. Every single time you navigated one of those painful moments in the past, you were quietly building a layer of resilience. You were proving to yourself that you are far more durable than your anxiety tells you that you are. That personal history is not just a collection of hard memories. It is living proof that you possess deep internal resources, courage, creativity, endurance, and grace that only reveal themselves when you truly need them. You don't have to carry the full answer to every future problem right now. You only need to trust that when the time comes, those same internal resources will be there, waiting for you once again. When you begin to build this kind of self-trust, the way you walk through the world entirely changes. You stop asking the world for constant guarantees before you take a step forward. You stop trying to control every person, outcome, and circumstance around you just to keep yourself feeling secure. You realize that real safety doesn't come from a life where nothing ever changes or breaks. Real safety comes from knowing that even if something changes or breaks, you will not break with it. You will feel the pain. You will process the grief. And then you will gently pull yourself back together and keep going. This trust allows you to look toward the horizon with curiosity instead of quiet dread. It gives you permission to put down the heavy armor you've been wearing to protect yourself from life. You begin to see that trusting what's coming is ultimately an act of honoring yourself. It is choosing to believe in your own capacity to heal, to learn, and to thrive, no matter what weather the next season brings. You become anchored not in the predictability of your circumstances, but in the unshakable strength of your own resilient spirit. What is genuinely meant for you will not require you to constantly diminish yourself just to keep it within reach. It will not demand that you abandon your deepest values, quiet your authentic voice, or beg for basic consideration and presence. So often, we spend years fighting for things that continuously push us away, believing that if we just suffer enough, adapt enough, or sacrifice enough of our own truth, we can make those things stay. But something that truly belongs in your life will never make you feel like you are constantly auditioning for a place in your own story. Things that align with your growth feel vastly different from the things you have to desperately hold together with both hands. They feel settling, clear, and deeply grounding. When a connection, a path, or an opportunity is truly right for you, it does not leave you in a state of continuous, quiet confusion. It doesn't leave you pacing your room late at night, trying to decipher mixed signals or guessing where you stand. It might still bring challenges, and it will certainly require effort, care, and dedication. But that effort will feel like building a home, not like trying to survive a storm. It will nourish your spirit rather than constantly eroding your sense of self. We often confuse intensity with alignment. We mistake the anxiety of chasing something for genuine passion. and we mistake the relief of a temporary compromise for true peace. We cling to situations that break our hearts because we worry that if we let them go, nothing better will ever come along. But when you finally begin to recognize what true alignment feels like, your standards quietly shift. You realize that peace is not boring. It is the natural state of things that actually fit. You notice that when something belongs in your life, you don't have to shrink to make room for it, nor do you have to pretend to be someone else to keep it interested. Recognizing what belongs to you also means learning to trust the gentle clarity that comes when something doesn't fit. It means having the self-respect to step back when you notice that you are doing all the holding, all the fixing, and all the compromising alone. It means understanding that when something naturally fades or steps away despite your best efforts, it is simply making room. It is life removing the things that are too small for where you are going, so that your hands are completely free when the right things arrive. When something truly belongs to you, there is a profound sense of mutual ease. You will notice a quiet calmness replace the constant, driving need to prove your worth. You won't have to convince it to stay, because it will choose to be there. You won't have to apologize for your depth, your needs, or your spirit, because those are the very things that will be welcomed and valued. As you learn to recognize this difference, you stop chasing what is moving away from you, and you begin to simply open your life to what naturally meets you with the same depth, honesty, and care that you bring to the table. As you move forward from today, practice walking with open hands rather than clenched fists. Take a quiet, meaningful moment right now to acknowledge how far you have already come. Look back at the heavy burdens you've carried, the silent battles you fought without anyone noticing, and the sheer courage it took to let go of what was no longer serving your heart. You are sitting here today, not by accident, but because you possessed the deep, innate strength to survive every single transition that life has brought to your doorstep so far. Stepping into what comes next requires a soft, unshakable faith in your own journey. It means choosing to stop staring at the closed doors behind you with regret, and instead turning your face toward the open horizon in front of you. When you let go of the rigid blueprints and the desperate need to control every single variable, you create space for life to surprise you in the most gentle and beautiful ways. You begin to understand that the ending of one chapter is not the ending of your capacity for joy, connection, or meaningful purpose. It is simply the quiet, necessary exhale before your life takes its next deep breath. There is a profound freedom that arrives when you finally stop fighting where you are and start trusting where you are going. You don't need to have every single step mapped out for the next 5 years. You don't need an immediate, perfect answer for every lingering question in your mind. You only need enough light to take the very next step with honesty, self-respect, and peace. Trust that as you walk, the path will reveal itself under your feet. Trust that the wisdom you gathered during your hardest seasons will naturally guide your choices and protect your peace. Remember that what is genuinely meant for you is not running away from you, nor is it standing behind a door you failed to open. What belongs in your life is making its way toward you with the exact same steady pace that you are moving toward it. It will not require you to break your own heart to reach it. When it arrives, it will feel settled, clear, and restorative. You will look back at all the painful closures, the quiet waiting rooms, and the moments of deep uncertainty. And you will see how every single pause was quietly preparing your heart to welcome what is next with complete clarity. So, take a deep breath, lower your shoulders, and loosen your grip on the past. Give yourself full permission to step into this new season without carrying the emotional weight of old fears. Walk forward with an open, trusting heart, knowing that you are fully capable of handling whatever unfolds. What is meant for you is already unfolding, and when you step into it, you will have the room, the peace of mind, and the grounded strength to welcome it fully into your life. If you have stayed with this journey all the way to this final moment, take a deep, slow breath right now. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, unclench your jaw, and allow your body to fully settle into the quiet space around you. We have traveled through some heavy terrain together. We have looked closely at the exhausting weight of holding on, the silent fears that keep us awake in the middle of the night, the illusions we build out of panic, and the deep courage it takes to open our hands and finally trust the natural timing of our lives. Take a moment to simply honor yourself for being willing to sit with these truths. It is not easy to look at your own life with such unvarnished honesty. It is much easier to stay distracted, to keep running, and to keep ignoring the quiet ache that tells you something needs to change. But by choosing to pause, to listen, and to reflect, you have already taken a massive, courageous step toward your own healing. You have signaled to yourself that your peace of mind matters, that your spirit deserves rest, and that you are no longer willing to spend your precious energy fighting battles that were never yours to win. As we bring this space to a gentle close, I want to leave you with a profound truth to carry in your heart as you step back into your daily routine. Releasing control is not a one-time event that you master in a single afternoon. It is an ongoing, daily practice of returning home to yourself. There will be days, even after everything you've realized today, where old anxieties creep back in. There will be mornings where you wake up feeling the sudden urge to grip tightly again, to force an answer, or to panic about the future. When those moments arrive, please do not judge yourself. Do not think that you have fallen backward or lost your progress. Human beings naturally crave certainty, and whenever life feels wet or unpredictable, our instinct will always be to reach for the nearest thing we can control. When you catch yourself doing this, simply notice it with deep gentleness. Treat yourself with the same warmth and patience you would extend to a dear friend who is scared. Remind yourself softly, I am safe right now. I don't have to solve my entire life today. I just need to return to this present moment. Living with open hands is a practice that changes the very atmosphere of your life. When you stop fighting reality, a profound sense of ease begins to fill the spaces where anxiety used to live. You start to notice the quiet beauty in small, everyday moments that you were previously too stressed to see. You begin to appreciate the quiet morning light, the warmth of a simple cup of tea, the relief of a genuine laugh, and the deep comfort of going to sleep with a quiet mind. You begin to realize that peace was never something far away that you had to achieve through endless struggle. Peace was simply what was left behind once you set down the heavy burdens you were never meant to carry. What is meant for you will find you. It does not need you to chase it down until you are exhausted. It does not need you to beg for its attention or compromise your self-respect to keep it near. What is genuinely aligned with your path will meet you with clarity, respect, and mutual ease. It will feel like coming home after a long, exhausting journey. Everything you are letting go of right now is simply clearing the room required to welcome those aligned experiences into your life. Before you close this video and step back into your day, let's mark this transition together in a meaningful way. I invite you to pause, take one more deep breath, and leave a final affirmation in the comments below. I release what was, I accept what is, and I trust what is coming. Writing these words down is more than just leaving a comment. It is a clear, conscious declaration to your own mind and spirit. It is your way of anchoring this newfound peace, placing a gentle bookmark at the end of an old chapter and turning the page toward the open horizon ahead. When you share your affirmation, take a second to read the words left by others in our community who are walking this exact same path beside you. Realize that you are not alone in your quiet moments of letting go. There are thousands of quiet souls right now, all over the world, choosing courage over fear, choosing peace over control, and choosing to trust their lives. Thank you for sharing your time, your heart, and your presence with me today. Carry this lightness with you as you move forward. Walk with soft shoulders, open hands, and a calm, quiet confidence in who you are becoming. Trust your journey, trust your timing, and above all, trust yourself. What is meant for you will never miss you.